Good morning, students. How is everyone? I hope you're all healthy. I welcome you to another literature class. It's been a while since our last class. With you again this morning is Mrs. Obaza Vivian. And today we are going to look at Act 2 of A Midsummer Night's Dream. I remember I had given you an assignment to read this act, both scenes 1 and 2. And I hope you did that. And today, before we continue, here are learning objectives. The students will be able to identify the characters that feature in the whole of Act 2, and 2, students will also be able to discuss the actions in both the scenes 1 and 2 of Act 2. We will notice that the whole actions in this act take place in the woods. Now, I want to give you a brief summary before we go into the discussion of the scenes of this act. This act opens up with Puck, a fairy who serves Oberon, gossiping with another fairy that serves Titania. But their conversation is very important, very vital, because through the eyes of the fairy, the unnamed fairy, we are made to see the true character of Puck, that he is mischievous and he is used by Oberon for mischief, a lot of mischief, and also for entertainment, especially when he is not happy. And so we now see why Puck causes the havoc that take place in the lives of the lovers in the woods through his mistake. Now, after the discussion of the fairy and Puck, we are introduced to Titania and her king Oberon, who enter and quarrel over the disagreement over the Indian boy. They accuse each other of cheating, of being unfaithful, and then when Titania still refuses to hand over the Indian boy to Oberon, as she leaves, Oberon orders Puck to go and take a flower which he sees the god of love shoots arrow on. It's a purple flower named Love in Idleness. The juice of this flower, when placed on the eyes of any person, makes the person fall in love with the first thing he or she sees as soon as the person is awake. And so Puck is asked to get this flower and place on the eyes of Titania, which will make her to fall in love with the first thing she sees as soon as she wakes. And Oberon prays that she falls in, that the first thing she sees will be a lion or any horrible being, so that being distracted by her new love, he will then take the Indian boy away from her. And then while also at this, Oberon, being a fairy, is unseen to Demetrius and Helena, who enter the woods in search of Hermia and Lysander. Demetrius is determined to kill Lysander and then take Hermia by force. So they enter the woods with Helena declaring her love for him, and he snubbing her. Helena is so much troubled and bothered and begs him for his love, telling him that she loves him so much that even more than life. As a matter of fact, I quote one of Helena's love statements to Demetrius. And even for that do I love you, that I am your spaniel, and Demetrius, the more you beat me, I will frown on you. Use me as your spaniel, spit on me, strike me, neglect me, lose me, only give me leave. Unworthy as I am to follow you, what worse place can I beg your love? and yet a place of high respect with me than to be used as you use your dog. You can imagine a lady telling a man to flog her, use her anyhow, kick her about just to bear his name. But Demetrius is undaunted. And so Oberon takes pity on Helena and swears that before the end of the night, he would have Demetrius begging Helena for her love. And so he orders Puck also to place the use of the same flower, love in idleness, on Demetrius's eye. Because he does not know the name of Demetrius, he describes her as a gentleman in Athenian clothing. And so Puck, mistakenly, instead of seeing Demetrius, runs into Lysander first, and thinking he is the person, places the juice of the flower on his eyelids. And then you can imagine what would have taken place as Lysander as Helena enters into the woods and sees Lysander sleeping and then decides to wake him up. And so the first person Lysander sees as he opens his eyes is Helena. And so the confusion among the lovers begin. That is the summary of the whole Act 2, the whole of Act 2. Now let us study this Act 2 according to the scenes. The summary of Scene 1. This second act takes place, as I have said, in the woods outside of Athens. Puck and an unnamed fairy exchange gossip about Oberon, the king of the fairies, and his wife, Titania. Puck explains that Oberon is jealous because Titania is infatuated with her new attendant, a young Indian boy whom she is accused of having stolen from the mother. Oberon has tried to take this young orphan from her, but so far Titania has resisted. Oberon and Titania, along with a throng of fairies, enter the clearing. Titania accuses him of having been unfaithful and having traveled to seduce women in foreign lands. Imagine the irony of it. For fairies being accusing each other of unfaithfulness with human beings, is seducing women in foreign lands. She points out that Hippolyta, the queen of the Amazons, was his lover, and he counters that Titania is in love with Theseus. Titania points out how their ongoing arguments and mutual jealousy have brought ill weather to their world for months, and Oberon counters that things might be settled if she would just give him the Indian boy to be his servant. After she leaves, Oberon summons Puck and gives him an assignment. Oberon remembers once having seen Cupid, the god of love, shoot an arrow that fell on a purple flower, and he knows this flower. The name of the flower is love in idleness. And the juice of this flower can be used to make people fall in love. He plans to use this love spell on Titania when she is asleep. It will cause her to fall in love with the first person she sees upon waking up, thus helping her to lose interest in her young servant, so that it will be easy for him to take the boy while Titania is distracted with her newfound love. Demetrius and Helena enter the clearing, but Oberon, being a fairy, is invisible to them. Helena insists that Demetrius owes his love to her because she has revealed Hermia's scheme to marry Lysander instead of him. But Demetrius tries ahead of her, insisting that Helena makes him sick, as he keeps telling her to leave him alone. She keeps insisting that she will never stop loving him. As she walks upstage, Oberon knows that Helena will have Demetrius ask him for his love in the end. And then this is the summary of Act 2, Scene 1. Let us now look at the actions in Act 2, Scene 2. This also takes place in another part of the wood. And we see Titania sits on her couch, surrounded by doting fairies. They sing her to sleep with a lullaby. and Oberon applies the flower to her eyelids. Lysander and Hermia pass by this spot, discussing their upcoming marriage. Hermia insists that they must not sleep together as they are still unmarried. This is because it is dark and they were tired and so had to sleep in the woods. And so Hermia, being a decent person, knows that it is not good for unmarried persons to sleep together. And so she asks Lysander to move away from her while she sleeps in another place. So Lysander moves away from her before lying down. Puck, having been instructed to apply the flower to a man in the woods dressed in a typical Athenian clothes, thinks the sleeping Lysander is Demetrius. Oberon wants Puck to apply the love spell to Demetrius while he slept, so that he will fall in love with Helena as much as she loves him. Instead, Puck applies it on Lysander's eyes. Demetrius arrives with Helena, still chasing him. When he breaks away from her, Helena stands and bemoans her inability to attract him. She finds Lysander on the ground and decides to wake him up, and the spell immediately takes effect on him, and he instantly falls in love with her. As Lysander emphatically declares his love for her, Helena becomes suspicious, feeling that he is making mockery of her. While she tries to drive him away and run away from him, the more she runs away, the more Lysander runs after her, declaring his love for her. Hermia awakens from a nightmare in which Lysander watched with a smile while a serpent ate her heart. She does not find her lover because he had gone chasing Helena, and so she calls out for him and does not see him. She goes into the wood to look for in search of him. And this brings an end to Act 2, Scene 2 of Act 2. Now, you can see why it is a comedy. From the actions in this act, you can see some of the characteristics of a comedy in this play. Now, the characters that feature in this act are Oberon, Titania, Puck, whose real name is Robin Goodfellow, Pheres, Demetrius, Helena, Lysander, Hermia, Nick Bottom, and other Athenian workers who are in the woods to rehearse, but eventually, before they appear on the scene, the act comes to an end. So we are going to meet these people, this Nick Bottom and his group, in the next act. And so, students, this is the end of our lecture for today. And for your assignment, I want you to go back and read Act 1, the whole of Act 1 and the whole of Act 2, because our next class, I will be giving you an assignment. It could be in form of content questions, which I will give you to attempt in order to test you. And then also read Act 3, Scenes 1 and 2 of A Midsummer Night's Dream. I'm happy to have spent this time with you. Continue to stay safe and have a wonderful day. Goodbye.